Now, before I actually start going into the individual examples, you should know that in a nutshell, the remainder of this episode is just talking about blood flow. Really, blood flow is the most meaningful thing that you can do to recover. Be that recovery from an injury or be it just recovery from your exercise and your training, there's basically nothing that is going to have as big of an effect on your recovery as just getting blood flow. So I want you to think about that in your head as I go over all these different tools. Do these tools help deliver more blood flow to the muscles and to the tissues that are needing to recover? If so, they probably are good recovery tools. And if not, there's a good chance that they really are not that good. Not that they don't have any application, but really blood flow is what we are looking for. The first one I wanted to start with, just because it is so common, is massaging and the use of like foam rollers and things like that. There's all different ways that you could apply sort of that pressure and that massaging, but anything that falls into that category kind of is all going to fall under this category. Well, so for massaging and foam rollers, you should know that there really is not any difference in muscular blood flow that the research shows. Now, some of the research has shown that there is a difference in cutaneous blood flow, and that means the blood flow of the skin, which could sound promising, but it could actually be a bad thing to have an increase in cutaneous blood flow, because then that could mean that blood is being diverted away from the muscles and the tissues and to the skin. We don't really need to recover our skin as much as we need to recover our muscles and our tendons and ligaments and our tissues there. So there's not really an increase in blood flow, but then why do people massage? Why do people use foam rollers? And the answer really is just because it feels good. Now that can come about in a couple different ways. Now I will say, just for context, a lot of the studies that have been done on this are done where one person acts as their own control group. So what I mean by that is somebody will do, for example, a recovery technique on their left arm, but not on their right arm. And so there's going to be like no amount of genetic variation or difference in nutrition or difference in sleep, because it's the exact same person. The only difference is what's done on their left arm versus their right arm. So this is pretty reliable research that we can glean a lot of information and value from because of the study design. Now, I've already mentioned that there's really no difference in muscle blood flow, but there is difference that can be seen through massaging and foam rolling in things like pain relief and edema. Now, edema is the medical word for swelling. So, if you've sprained your ankle, it's probably swollen up. That is considered edema. But also just muscle tissue can have, increased amounts of fluid inside of it. It might not be as dramatic, but that is a form of edema. Now, massaging can elicit pain-relieving benefits because when you rub on the skin and on these tissues, basically it disrupts the pain signals that are being sent to the brain. So you're adding an additional sensation onto that, let's say your legs. We'll use your legs as your example. You did squats or you did sprints, and so your legs are really sore. You're getting that sore sensation sent to your brain, but if you're able to rub on the skin and on those muscles that are sore, then you're sending this, sort of conflicting signal to the brain, and it's disrupting the pain signal. So it can be pain relieving in that regard. And then that pressure that you're putting onto the tissue, again, by means of your massage or your foam roller, whatever that might be, can actually increase the cellular pressure of the muscle cells. And then since they have that extra fluid, well, if there's more pressure on them, then they're going to be more likely to start pushing out that fluid back into the bloodstream, have a better fluid balance. And then if there's less fluid, there's less swelling. We've already talked about how that swelling of the muscle cells can kind of cause those soreness sensations. And so with that additional pressure, it might help promote the passing on of these fluids back into the bloodstream and kind of getting rid of that muscle soreness and things like that. Now, massaging and foam rolling might not be the most effective way to do that, to increase that cellular pressure and promote the fluid flowing away from those cells. Now, you might actually think that sounds bad, right? Because we've talked about how blood flow to the cell is beneficial. Now, if that's beneficial, we want fluid to the cell, then why would, as a recovery technique, we push fluid away from the cell? And well, if there's fluid pushed away from the cell, it actually makes room for new fluid and new blood to enter the cell that is better, it's more oxygenated, and it has less metabolites and waste products in it, and it has more fueling and recovery components in that new blood, that new fluid. So that could actually be very beneficial in that regard.